No doubt. I think firstly, this is over and above what we have indicated at the time of the budget in terms of where our debt is. We are taking about $4.3 billion extra from what we said at the time of the budget. But it's also important to realize that there's also on the revenue side, in terms of tax collection, there's been a decline of almost 304 billion rand that we projected to undercollect this current financial year, all because of the downgrade at the beginning of the year and also as a result of the COVID-19 impact that it had on businesses and the economy as a whole. So firstly, I think it should be looked at as such that we are taking on, but we are taking on in addressing some of the broader challenges that we have. And we've outlined a number of those challenges, supporting frontline services, supporting interventions to create jobs and actually ensure that the economy comes back to normal, including ensuring that we actually address the health challenges that we may have as a result of the COVID and the impact that COVID brings with it. So it is critical and important that this loan came in handy at this time, and then we really will ensure that whatever money comes through is used for the intended purposes as outlined in our statements and in what the President said at the time of in April when he announced the 500 billion package.
Yeah, and that is the big question, isn't it? That the money that we are getting from the IMF is used for its intended purpose. And that really is some of the big stories leading our newspapers and our headlines in the news this morning is the corruption around COVID-19 funding, around the appointment of COVID-19 related tenders. The South African government, in receiving this IMF loan, committing itself to managing the money, it says, quote unquote, with full transparency, we know that government does not have a good track record when it comes to that. That's putting it mildly. How do we ensure that this money goes where it's intended?
Firstly, I think let me highlight what the President indicated at the time. It's important that the President made it clear that we will have to ensure that COVID-19 expenditure is accounted for. We have at the time of the, around May or so, we issued some instruction, Treasury instruction of 2021, whereby we were indicating how to account for COVID-19 related expenditure and how we should hold accounting officers accountable. Remember, at the end of the day, it's accounting officers that must account for these monies. They have to put systems in place. They have to put risk mitigation measures in place to ensure that we get the value for the kind of spending that we have to ensure. Firstly, I think it's important that we have to deal with any alleged corruption, any alleged activities that are untoward in the way that we're spending this money. And not only COVID-related monies, by the way. All procurement legislation, all rules and regulations as per the MFMA and PFMA are still in place. We have not put that out of the window. They are still in place, and accounting officers, accounting authorities, internal audit committees must play their role in ensuring that every cent is accounted for. The AG and I are in constant discussion. We're actually having a long discussion yesterday, the Auditor General, in terms of areas that they must look at, areas that they must focus all their energies on in terms of reporting. And we don't have to wait for next financial year, by the way, to account for some of these monies. We have put measures in place that accounting authorities and accounting officers must immediately, as and when they spend, they must, the relevant treasury, all 9 provincial treasuries, including ourselves, need to be informed. We need lists of suppliers that were awarded contracts. We need to know how much was paid, and we need to ensure that the prescripts and the prices that we have issued out there, the prices are in line with what was finally procured, because we've got a reference price list that we issue on various intervals.
Yeah.
And we expect that all supply chain managers in departments and entities should actually follow those prescripts that we've issued.
And the thing about what you're saying, DG, is that this all sounds wonderful in writing, because none of what you're saying is new. These prescripts have been here for many, many years. We've seen the corruption during the years of state capture. We're seeing, as the state capture inquiry still grapples with what unfolded over the past 10 years, we now face a new hurdle of coming to terms with COVID corruption.
Where there is corruption, law enforcement and criminality, law enforcement agencies must come in. where there's measures that disciplinary action must be taken against officials, that must be done immediately. So it is high time. I think COVID-19 on its own is obviously bringing a reality that we've been grappling with for many years. That says the system is not foolproof, and we need to ensure that all of the systems that are in place are properly adhered to. That is something that I think all efforts needs to be put in order to ensure that what you're referring to has been a decade-long or more than decade-long activities must come to an end. It cannot be that with the mega resources that we have, that those resources are put to waste. It cannot be. It cannot be that we go to the IMF like we went to now, getting 4.3 billion. We go to the NTP, we go to the World Bank, we go to various bond purchasers to actually get money when we cannot on our own do the right things. And I think this is an important thing that I think as government officials, as a state as a whole, must take into account and ensure that public funds are spent in the most efficient and effective way.
Treasury DG Dondo Mogajane, please don't go away. We're going to continue our discussion with you in just a moment. The IMF